Hi, I'm Liz Forrest, and today on the Community Dialogues, I'm here with Kim Strubell, and he is the creator, founder, organization, creator of the charityseeds.org. So I would love for you to explain to me just a little bit more about what it is that you have created here, and just kind of let us know what it is that you're bringing to the community and the world.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate this time because it's obviously my favorite subject. And Charity Seeds started about 10 years ago. I was living in Panama. I thought I retired and went to Panama, and I ended up living in with the Embera Indians in Panama, the Darien Gap. It's about 10,000 square miles of unruly jungle. And I was living almost a year with the Embera Indians. And while I was there, I noticed that they were hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
They'd go out and they'd fish, and they'd kill anything they could see, a monkey, a bird, anything.
Wow.
But they also started to wipe out the jungle. And even though they had been doing it their whole lives, it was disappearing. The fish were getting smaller. They couldn't catch as many. And I was thinking to myself at the time, I was with my son, and then I was thinking it would be, what if they had a garden? You know, and so that's what triggered the thought of Charity Seeds, bringing gardens to people in need, villages, or the Embera and Kuna Indians in the Darien jungle. So I left and came back to the United States, and I went to school studying sustainable living. And that's where I discovered different methodologies that could possibly work. And those methodologies have changed over the years, and we adjusted to the places in need.
Yeah.
So we're in Panama at that time, and we opened up Guatemala, and that was I learned more in Guatemala about the potential of what we were doing. When I met this man, his name was Manuel Hughes. Manuel was the founder of an organization called Campesino to Campesino, which is Spanish for farmer to farmer. And it took me almost 10 years to truly understand what he told me in that month that I was living with him in Guatemala. He's Mayan, and they approached the whole process with an indigenous approach. And I met his son, Mario, who became my trainer. And one thing that's very important to Charity Seeds is when you go to an area to open up and train people in the area, only use the people from that region.
Yes.
Do not bring in people from Fairfield to go help them.
Yeah.
If you're going to work with Mayans, they're going to be Mayans training them. If you're working in Africa and Kenya, they're going to be Kenyans training the Kenyans. So I learned something, that campesino to campesino, which means farmers to farmers, and that stuck with me, and that I tried to implement it. What happened in Guatemala was it was in the 60s and 70s. Manuel Hughes was the founder of Campesino to Campesino, and I'm listening to his stories, and he started this process of neighbors teaching neighbors. Farmers teaching farmers. And it spread all throughout Central and South America and Cuba. And then, unfortunately, in that time in the 60s and the 70s, the government came down on this organization. They thought they were a terrorist group because they were stealing the laborers from the plantations, from Chiquita banana and Dole pineapple. So now they were making a living with this and setting up co-ops, and it was working. Unfortunately, the government came in and started shooting and murdering the farmers.
Wow.
Thousands and thousands were murdered. Mario and his family had to walk to Mexico over the mountains with the children on the backs. And he stayed there for 10 years. When he came back, he wanted to restart it. And that's when I flew down to Guatemala and see if we could help.
Wow.
And I was with him for months, starting programs up, and we opened up orphanages and schools, and just opening up, community gardens, working with the Mayans, and that went really well. But his concept is what stuck with me, that neighbors to neighbors teaching each other. That was the true loop of sustainability, because now you have something that can regenerate itself without the input of an organization.
Yeah.
And that's very important. So we took that concept to Kenya. And we worked with some Kenyans there, and we got trainers there. And with that concept, in the first 5 years, we put in 17,000 farms.
Yeah.
Because of the process. There's no infrastructure to build. There's no schools. There's no buildings. You don't need tractors. You don't need microscopes. It's all about growing the soil with the materials you have on your land.
Yeah.
And that's what they learned. And then they would take that knowledge and teach their neighbor.
Yeah.
And they would teach that neighbor. So this whole organization, Charity Seeds, isn't really about money.
No.
It's about people.
Yes.
And that's where I wanted to get to. And that's what Manuel Hughes taught me. So when I was in Kenya, I was there for 4 or 5 months just learning about their gardening, their techniques, their methodologies, finding and vetting trainers.
Yeah.
And that's when I went to Kisumu, which is out by the lake of Lake Victoria, the largest lake in Africa, I guess.
Yep.
I went to see the hippos and the crocodiles. And I paid my $50. I'm out in a boat.
Yep.
And I look back and I see these kids just diving off of tree limbs into the lake and swimming and playing. And I said, I'd rather see them than go out and see the hippos. So I turned around, lost my $50, and I went to see these kids, a dozen of them. And I went towards them, and I went and bought some bread too. I bought 12 loaves of bread I had it in my arms, and I'm going towards these boys.
Yeah.
They're coming out of the lake, they're butt naked, and they're coming towards me, and I give them bread, and then I take my camera out, take pictures of them, and obviously they're all covering themselves in the bread,
Yeah.
And I learned about the street boys now. I was introduced to Kenya's street boys.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of thousands of these kids on the streets in Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa.
Yeah.
And I was intrigued by their life. They were like cowboys.
Yeah.
They're mavericks. They're jumping on trucks. They're jumping off of trucks. They're running around, swimming and playing and stealing food.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by their lifestyle. And I thought, this is actually pretty interesting. And so I started to journal it, and I followed them during the day. And we went to a park, and this is where I saw the dark side of the street boys. They had gone to the cobblers, the local cobblers, and they steal glue out of the garbage.
Really?
And they sniff the glue. And so that's the dark side of their life, and it's really taking them down. So now you can see it, their eyes are black and red, and their skin is just not healthy. So I'm following these boys, and then I followed where they lived. And I went at 5:30 in the morning, I climbed this garbage pit. It must have been 100 feet high.
Wow.
I'm in sandals and shorts and T-shirts, and I'm climbing up this garbage pit, and hundreds of street boys come out of cardboard boxes towards me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, did I make a mistake here?
Yeah.
Because they could steal my sandals and bury me in this garbage and no one would ever know.
Yeah.
So I'm studying the street boys, and I'm saying, wow, what if we could have a rescue center for street boys and have gardens? And we created one in Kenya,
amazing.
in this town called Tiki, a small town north of Nairobi. And it's still going today. It's been about 5 years, and we brought 100 boys to this rescue center.
Yeah.
They lived there, and we educated them and grew gardens. Now today, 100 street boys are totally food independent.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's an amazing, amazing model.
Yeah.
They trade their extra vegetables for rice and fish. So they have a food forest. They got fruit trees. They got 10 different kinds of fruit trees. And it's just an amazing model that this has happened, which, 100 street boys.
Yeah.
So we took this concept, this model, and we realized this is what Campesino to Campesino is about. Take this model and teach this model.
Yeah.
So the next step we took was to Uganda.
Yeah.
And Uganda is known for its refugee camps. And
Very many.
yeah, Joseph Kony, a little bit of history here, not to take up a lot of time, but Joseph Kony was a warlord that was in Uganda at the time. And he was the guy in the 60s and 70s, even later 80s, that this is going to get a little bit ugly here, but he was the guy that said to the children, you pick up that gun and shoot your parents, or I will cut your hands off with this machete.
Wow.
And so all the children were abandoned because the parents were dying. And the children were now there were 66,000 children in his army.
Wow.
just terrorizing all of Uganda.
Yeah.
And so everybody was starting to flee and go to safe places, and there's where the refugee camp started to grow. And now we got, a lot of countries north of Uganda that are warring in the civil wars,
Yeah.
and they're fleeing to Uganda right now for their refugee camps. We're in 2 refugee camps. One has 100,000 families.
Wow.
The other one has 37,000 families, and there's 28,000 more people coming in every day.
Wow.
So we went to the refugee camp, and again, I stuck to the philosophy: only use Ugandans for their training.
Yeah.
They know the water, they know the soil, they know the indigenous seeds, and they know indigenous farming. They know agroecology.
Yeah.
We don't have to go teach them this.
Yeah.
So these teachers that are very educated, they're very smart, are teaching now at the refugee camps. And with the philosophy is, we're going to teach you how to teach your neighbor.
Yeah.
And so we started that in the refugee camps probably 6 months ago. And today we have 400 farms.
Wow. That's amazing.
Only because of the philosophy of campesino to campesino, farmer to farmer. We're calling it neighbor to neighbor.
Yeah.
And so the Central America and South America philosophy has been, delivered to Africa.
Yeah.
And this model with the street boys, 100% food independent.
Yeah.
And now these children and families, the parents were telling the kids when we're starting to train them, this soil is not good, you can't grow anything.
Yeah.
If I had pictures of it, you'll see cabbages the size of my body.
Wow.
And they're getting for the first time in their life, these children are getting vegetables.
Yeah.
All they're getting is cornmeal and beans,
Yeah.
Subsidized.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between Charity Seeds, and there's a lot of very good organizations out there, a lot of good NGOs, non-government organizations. But they satisfy immediate need.
Yes.
They're gonna give them a bag of rice. They're gonna give them some cornmeal. They're gonna give them some blankets.
Yeah.
And first aid, and they all need that.
Yeah.
But the key here is we want them to become independent.
Yeah.
That food sovereignty is very important.
Yeah.
And keep maintaining their indigenous sovereignty too at the same time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're not going to interfere with their culture at all. Nope, anywhere. I'm very strong about that. So the refugee camps is becoming a model. It's starting to grow, I guess, from lack of expression. That is sustainability, when it takes care of itself and it continues. Like I said, we're not building schools, we're not building buildings or using tractors. So it's all right on their land, everything they need. We teach them to save seeds. We teach them to grow their soil. We teach them to save water. And with all those things that they're teaching them, the whole cycle of sustainability is right there on their piece of land.
Yeah.
And now the knowledge is transferred to the neighbor, and we got 400 farms in 5 months.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, it took me 10 years to totally understand Campesino to Campesino. I studied it, but I didn't get it. And Mario, his father, Manuel Hughes, has died in the meantime. And now we got Mario. I hired Mario. He's teaching down in Guatemala and teaching the Mayans.
That's awesome.
So that's the story in just a few minutes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that you're empowering people not only to be authentic to who they are and that indigenous, community, but you're also teaching them how to be sustainable, not only for themselves, but moving forward and teaching their families. And
it's becoming more of a whole than I ever thought of.
Yeah.
And there's a term that I'm aware of, and I'm going to use it. I wasn't planning on it, but it's an emergent property. An emergent property, really quickly, is when you have hydrogen and you have oxygen and 2 oxygen, and you put those together, you get water. And then when you have more than those, and you get more of a whole is greater than the sum of its parts,
Yep.
that's called an emergent property. That's where creativity comes from. It's an emergent property. The emergent property of these things is wetness.
Yeah.
And that blows me away. We are at a point right now with Charity Seeds that we are at a point of emergent property starting to happen.
Yeah. It's
Farmers
amazing.
to farmers.
Yeah.
And that emergent property is, I think it's celebration. I think it's song.
Yes.
Because when these children are picking their vegetables and they're harvesting and they're bringing the vegetables home to the families, to the parents that told them they couldn't grow in that soil,
Yeah.
when they're going home and bringing home this food, there's a moment of celebration and song, and they're actually singing while they're picking the vegetables.
Yeah.
Literally singing.
That's beautiful.
And so I'm almost thinking this emergent property is song, and I don't know what that means. I really don't.
We're manifesting. Yes.
But that's the point of creation.
Yeah.
And that's what creates movement. That's what creates this thing to keep going on its own. And like I said, it's not about money. In a sense, we have to give trainers to it. But it's not about making money. It's about people. And I think that's where it has to, really start to grow from.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you just give somebody something, then they're immediately getting their needs fulfilled. But it's the long term. And to teach them, that's where the big overall vision is to help create that.
I think we've all heard the saying, give them a fish.
Yep. Eats for a day.
Or teach them to fish.
Yeah.
And I think that simplifies it a lot, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. So our goal is to, like I said, there's 100,000 families there. We really want to take care of every family in that refugee camp.
Yeah.
And then there's thousands of people coming in. The Joseph Kony thing, I mean, the people there in the refugee camp, they were the children in the army.
Yeah.
Now they're grown up, the parents and the grandparents. And so it's an amazing thing watching this, the way it unfolds.
Yeah.
I just, we were told that we wouldn't be able to grow. The soil's no good.
Yeah.
There's no rain. And we're teaching them to save water. We're teaching them, to save gray water.
Yeah.
And filter that.
Yeah.
And so it's working. I think Charity Seeds, just promoting it somehow, getting it out there, is going to take off. And there's, again, we put in 17,000 farms in Kenya. Now we're starting in Uganda, and I think it's going to have a good, it's not going to take long for it to get thousands of farms.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love what you're doing and how you're helping individuals worldwide. So you have a not-for-profit organization, and I know there's a lot of organizations like that, and some, only give a certain amount. But one thing that's unique about yours is the amount that you give back.
Yeah, I made that clear at the very beginning because I know charities had a bad rap, and some deserve it, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're taking it so lopsided that the salaries and the CEOs are getting millions of dollars, and 10% of the money is going to the projects.
Yeah.
That's not right. What we decided to do from the very beginning, and it's in the contract, it's in our bylaws, that I set up 2 bank accounts. And one bank account is for me. No, just kidding.
Right.
One bank account is for admin and taking care of marketing, because you have to do that. And then one bank account is for if somebody gives $20 for a donation, that 100% of that money goes to the farms, goes to the projects.
Yeah.
So we separated it, and then the businesses who are give us permission to put it towards admin, because they realize the importance of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's all right to pay people. If you got a person, I'd rather pay somebody who's doing really good marketing, a good salary, than earning $17 at a farmer's market selling T-shirts,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because then it really does help you grow the organization, so you really can impact so many more lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's wonderful. And then otherwise, you've got the website. Is there any other information that you want to share with the audience?
Well, social marketing is where we're going. We think it's we're using Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and I have 2 people that are, working that. I used to do it all, but I didn't know what TikTok was for a long time, so I had to give it up and let them do it.
The younger generation, right?
So it's working. They're very good, and so Facebook and Instagram for Charity Seeds is the place to go. We're trying to build community right now. We obviously, one-time donations are good. And they're always helpful. I'm never going to turn down a donation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the same philosophy, I want to create within the organization, and create a community of people who want to participate, whatever that participation is, if it's sharing something or whatever, joining, donating. That's so important to me, and we created that community. It's called the Seedlings.
Yeah.
So if you join and you're doing the Seedlings, you can go on the website and do that. But that's what we want to create. We want to create the organization just as we're doing in Kenya and Uganda. We want it to be about people and not about, just getting the big dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's wonderful. I appreciate you coming in to give us the information, and I look forward to seeing how many lives, you impact through this organization worldwide. So,
thank you.
yes, it's beautiful. Thank you so much.